Do you want to avoid the most typical hand lettering mistakes from the start? I'm so glad you found this video. Here I will show you the most typical mistakes beginners make and how to fix them. This video is great for those of you who are just starting out, but also for people who have already started learning on their own and feel like there's something not quite working with their technique. It will help you spot and fix those little things that make all the difference. You will find a list of all the used products in the description box below. Okay, so the first mistake is not using the right kind of pen. For instance, for brush lettering, we need a pen with a flexible tip that allows us to create thin and thick strokes. But for monoline, we need a pen that has a tip like the one of this Pigment liner that has a consistent line width. The second mistake is writing without lifting the pen from the paper. In regular handwriting, we can do that, but when we are doing brush lettering, we need to stop when we draw each of the strokes of the letters. Let me show you an example. If we do it without lifting the pen from the paper, it will be hard to read. The correct way to do it is to stop after each of the strokes and in between each letter. The third mistake is writing too fast. If we write too fast, we cannot focus on properly drawing each of the strokes and each of the letters. The result will be wrong and hard to read. Instead, take your time to draw each of the strokes, thinking about the pressure, the direction, and the shape of each of the strokes. The fourth mistake is not holding the pen in the right position. If we hold the pen too vertically or too close to the tip, we won't be able to press it hard against the table and we won't get thick strokes. Our letters will not have a difference between thin and thick and will all look the same. Always try to hold your pen a little bit bent towards the table and about 2 or 3 centimeters from the tip. Your position is also important. Always have your back pressed against the chair and your feet on the floor. The fifth mistake is not using guidelines. In order to create consistent letters, we need to draw those guidelines to know where all letters sit and what their height should be. If we don't use them, some letters will be too small, some will be too big, and some will be too high. So it's always better to draw some lines. We will talk about them later. And you can even draw some diagonal lines, so all your letters have the same slant. This way, it will be easier to create consistent letter forms. Another very common mistake is not practicing basic strokes and not placing correctly the thins and thicks in your letters. In brush lettering, our letters have thin and thick strokes, but they should be placed properly. Basic strokes are the basic forms that form all of the letters in the alphabet, and practicing them will teach you where the thin and thicks should be placed. So for instance, for these letters that some are very hard to read, we have these basic strokes, and then when you have learned them, you can combine them to create letters in a proper way. The seventh mistake is not using the right tip size. The size of your letters depend on the size of the tip of your brush pen. If you write too small letters with a big tip size, the result will be hard to read. Eighth mistake is not choosing the right kind of paper. For most of the styles and techniques, you can use a paper that has a smooth surface that prevents the tip of your brush pens from fraying and also ink bleeding. For practicing, you can choose an 80 or 100 grams per square meter weight, which is perfect, like this one. And you can also use paper that has dots, this dot pattern that will make it easier for you to draw guidelines and also to draw letters in a consistent height. For your final pieces, you can choose a slightly heavier paper, like 180 or 200 grams per square meter, like illustration paper. Many brush pens have water-soluble ink, and that means that you can mix them with water to create watercolor effects. Make sure that you use watercolor or mixed media paper to create watercoloring effects. Finally, the size and orientation of your paper is also important. Sometimes it's easier to start with smaller sizes to avoid the fear of the blank page. And also, some designs work better in landscape than in portrait. So keep that in mind when choosing the orientation of the paper for your next composition. And last but not least, one of the biggest mistakes you can make that will prevent you from enjoying your learning journey is to compare yourself to others. Learn and improve at your own pace and embrace your mistakes. Remember that hand lettering is not meant to be perfect, it is meant to be unique. So these are the most common mistakes made by newbies. Feel free to use our hand lettering creator to help you solve many of them. It will guide you through the basics and it offers many practice sheets, templates and designs that you can download to practice at home and get better with your lettering. I hope you found very useful tips in this video, so don't forget to like it. Are you ready to dive deeper into the world of hand lettering? Check out our next video to learn everything about the different lettering styles and the products you need to recreate each of them.